All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another session. Today we have a special guest presenter in the person of Karsten Spencer. I'll just read an introduction about Karsten, and then I'll hand over to him to do his presentation. So Karsten Spencer is a photographer and director based in New York City. Born in St. Ann, Jamaica, he was raised there until moving to Kingston to attend Wolmer's Boys School. After high school, he migrated to the United States to pursue his education and career goals. His journey into photography began as a hobby after receiving his first iPhone. He learned to capture the right angles, impressing himself and his friends with his images. His skills significantly improved with the acquisition of his first film camera, although he continued to prefer using an iPhone and tripod for quite a while. Eventually, he obtained his first professional camera, marking the official start of his career. Spencer's primary focus in photography is highlighting Black bodies and documenting the people around him. Finding this focus was challenging as he navigated through fashion editorials, the commercial workspace, portraiture, and more. What drives him in photography is the limitless potential for creativity. For him, photography is about turning countless ideas, big or small, into tangible images or physical mediums. As a Jamaican, he's naturally driven by competition, constantly pushing himself, to keep up with his peers and the industry leaders. Some of Karsten's notable achievements include shooting 2 magazine covers for L'Officiel and Glamour magazine at 18 years old, landing, landing an internship with the Custom Family, a production house behind some of the most iconic images ever created, and producing and directing his first documentary on immigrants living in foreign spaces, which is still in development. He has had the opportunity to work on projects for companies such as Google, Yale University, PBS, Under Armour, Snickers, various magazine outlets, and has even seen his work in British Vogue. However, his most cherished accomplishment is having the honor to speak to his fellow Jamaicans at the Jamaica Society of Photographers. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Karsten to the floor.
Hi. Hi, hello. So I'm Karsten, and I'm not going to lie, I was very nervous during that whole introduction, as like this is my first time ever doing like a presentation of any sort. And I guess for me, this presentation is more just like talking about like different topics and like how I navigated it or how I got there. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was why I chose to do photography or how photography chose me in any sense. As Dwayne kind of mentioned, I was just like, I I'll tell my version of the story, even how like it happened for me. So I was never really interested in like photography or shooting any images for like a majority of my childhood. And then I think it was moving to Kingston where everybody had an iPhone and seeing the quality of the iPhone images like all the time on social media or your friends saying that group chat. If somebody's taking a picture, it's like, hold on, take with the iPhone. So that was how I was like, the iPhone images look so good. I want to get one too. So when I begged my mom, she lives in the U.S., and I begged her and her husband like every weekend, like, please, I'll keep my grades up. Like, I'll get a, I'll get, if you go to Wolmer's or if you went to Wolmer's, you just need to call the Blue Reports. And I was like, I'll get all the Blue Reports as if you do well in school. I'll be like, I'll get all the Blue Reports, I'll do everything I can, but please, I need the iPhone. Like, and then it so happened that I had to make a little mini contract. I was like 15 and I made a contract that said Karsten Spencer will receive an iPhone. I think it was an iPhone 8 at the time or something like that, iPhone 6 or 8 or something like that. Or oh, it was a 10, the iPhone 10. I was like, Karsten Spencer receive an iPhone 10 in the event he keeps up all his grades. If not, the phone will be taken away. So that's how it happened. I got the phone and I kept my grades up and I took all the images and I was so impressed. I was like, wow, the quality, everything is amazing. And from there, the love for it kind of just like grew. Like I kept taking images, I kept using my tripod. I'd like ask friends if they wanted to model for me. And keep in mind, I just had this phone, but I prop it up like it was the most professional camera and take images. And everybody loved it. And I was like, wow, if they like it, then I must be doing something good. So after using this iPhone, I was like, I want a real camera now. And I was on Instagram and I found this the Jamaican like photography society feels so small at times, but it is actually very resourceful when you really look out. So I was searching and searching. I actually found somebody in Kingston who does film development and they also sold film cameras. So I asked, hey, like, how much is that film camera? Like $5,000. Like 5,000. I can't afford that. Like that's lunch money for almost a month. So I saved and I saved and I saved, but it still wasn't enough. So I went back to my mom again and I was like, all right, look, I'll keep the grades up. I don't know what else I can do, but I'll do something. And we agreed on something. I don't know what it was, but we agreed on something. And then they were like, all right, we'll get you the $5,000 to get the film camera. So I got it and I took more images and I was loving it. I was like, wow, film is amazing. But little did I know, like, you have to develop film. I didn't know that at the start. I was just rushing into everything because I was in love with this image I was getting every time. So I didn't know you had to develop it. So when it came out, I had to develop it. And I was like, can I get help? And they're like, nope, you have to get that job. So luckily that was when fifth form was over. So it was summer and I started working with my aunt and she runs out a production company. It's not she runs a production company in Kingston called Far Eye Films. So I started working with her, lifting sandbags on set, helping out, just getting water for everybody, just doing what I could. And I made the money and then I started developing the film. And then afterwards, it was so by chance that they had this ton of equipment and they were like, I was like, hey, like that camera, is anybody using it? And they're like, no, it's been here for years, nobody's touched it. And it was this old Canon, it was a T7i, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And it had this lens that had like, it was a really bad lens. It had like fungus growing in it. It was really bad. It was a bad camera. But I took it and then I started taking images again of my friends. And just like, I would go like out of Kingston and go like to the country and just like find these beaches or find like these forests and we just like take images there all day. And it was fun at first, like experimenting, like putting flowers all over their hands and just taking these images because that was fun. That was what it was. And for me, like that was just like what brought me joy, just taking these images. And the more and more like I grew, it was just more and more it became better. So after like I moved to the US right after high school ended, and it was harder actually then because there's all as a teenager, there's a perception that moving to the US is the best thing that could happen to you. And this is the road to gold now. But it was actually like the complete opposite because I didn't know anybody, nobody knew me. I couldn't work, couldn't go to school. So I was just isolated. And then it so happens I was on Instagram one day. So Instagram has been bringing me a lot clearly. So it's good for something. But I was on Instagram and I saw like photo studio pop up. And then I was like, all right, well, I'd like to go there. And I rented it out. I saved up every little dollar I got to like spend on something. I saved it up and I put it towards going to the photo studio. And I also paid for a model, which now I know you're not supposed to do for like what's considered a test shoot. So I was paying every dollar I had because I just wanted to take these images so bad. And then went to the photo studio and I took those images. They were really bad. Now that I look back, but I was happy then, and that was what mattered to me the most. And then afterwards, I just kept taking images. I kept growing. Well, I just consistently just took images every day, and that was that was just what it was for me, just taking these images. And then that just led me to end up like having this career going on for me now, just from like learning and speaking to people and consistently just learning about images. That was what it was for me, just researching, buying photo books, going to like any event I could. I would hear people talk about that help me in photography. And it was just this obsession. And that's what really drove me to just be a photographer and fall in love. And it wasn't until I was researching, I was like, I want to learn more about Jamaican photographers because I'm constantly exposed to American photographers, but what about my people? You know, I want to learn what my people are doing too. And that led me to find about Miss Zaka, and I love her work. It's amazing. Her work is genuinely so mature and so like breathtaking. And I reached out to her. I didn't know her number was gonna be online because you know you don't usually find photographers' numbers online. They usually try to keep everything hidden. And I found her number and I reached out on WhatsApp. I was like, I love your work, Miss Zaka. And she introduced me to Dwayne. And now I'm here telling you why I chose photography. So that's kind of my story on photography. And I would, you know, love to hear anybody else's. If anybody would like to tell me theirs or why they're interested in photography. But yeah, that's mine.
I think everybody in here has one common thing that we all share. Meeting Miss Zaka.
Yes. She's genuinely amazing. Like it was just a nice, she's very nice, down to earth, and we just talked and talked about photography and his life. And it was amazing meeting her. But yeah, that was Mr. Bruce Taylor. I'd love to hear about how you got into photography.
Well, I don't remember how it started, but I always thought I had a flair for the arts. And I got a camera way back in the 80s. And we had a Jamaica color photography club. And they had a lot of masters in that club. We were really excited. We met every 2 weeks and we had our competitions. We went on field trips, and I got the chance to really rub shoulders with some of the best photographers in Jamaica, you know. I never thought at that time that I would specialize in any particular area because one of the things at that time we recognized 13 different categories in photography. And there was even a competition. We had what we call a roll of film competition. When we went to a new town, you know, you had a roll of 24 and you tried to shoot as many images in the 13 categories that we recognize. And that was really fun. And I did a few, people bought my work for calendars, you know, back in the years. And but in recently I have had a passion for event photography. I dabbled with parties, I did weddings and so on. Now my new love is real estate photography. It's a little slower pace, and I'm enjoying it.
Nice.
It took me some time to keep up with the technology, but I'm trying to be there, but realize that there's still a lot to learn, although I've been shooting so many years.
Nice. I love that. It's really good to hear from somebody who has been doing this for a much longer time and like how your experience has been. I think another thing or another part of the presentation that relates to what you said is I guess why I chose to shoot like people in opposed to shooting, you know, for example, real estate or weddings or any other type of photography. I think for me, so I'm gonna explain like, you know, why I chose to shoot people or why I specialize in shooting portraits or black bodies specifically. So for me, photography was fun because it was just taking images of people. Anytime I took a picture of a building or like the sunset, I actually did like the sunset images. I won't lie there. But anytime I took a image of a building or of a flower or anything else, I didn't feel that same drive or passion that I felt when I was taking images of people. So I did explore a little bit in terms of trying new types of photography. So I tried out taking pictures of like the spaces around me, mainly buildings, because at that time I didn't know many people when I moved to America. So it was like I had to find other alternatives. So taking pictures of nature or trying to, every now and then somebody would reach out like a Facebook group and they'd be like, hey, would you be interested in shooting a wedding? And I did end up shooting a wedding and it was fun, but I think like for me, I realized that I could be doing more when I shoot people. And I think shooting people is what, brought me that enjoyment. So I spent like time exploring with models. So like every like weekend I would, once I could work, I got a work permit. And once I could work, I started working at my aunt's office. She was a doctor and I started working at her office as just like a secretary. And I would take that money like every week. It wasn't much, but I'd take that money and then I'd pay, as I was saying, I was paying for like a studio and paying for a model every weekend, building like my portfolio and just taking these images because I just couldn't stop. Like I would really love just taking pictures of people. And I think for me, now the focus is highlighting Black bodies specifically because I think, especially in like fashion photography, which is something that I end up doing a lot, I noticed that there's a highlight on people, there's a highlight on white people and there's not as much highlight on Black people. And even all the research that I do, I found out like this is something that's been on my mind a lot, but through my research, I'm just like, why aren't there many images of, Black people going around? I found out, I think it was Danielle Luna, I hope I didn't say her name wrong, but she was like the first model who was ever on a cover for a magazine, the first Black model. But they ended up like, the makeup they did for her was so white and they made her hide parts of her face. So you couldn't even tell she was a Black person. And for me, somebody who's not specifically deep into fashion, I was still kind of like upset by this fact because I was like, there's so many beautiful Black people out there that deserve to be highlighted, but aren't because there is just a standard of white beauty being, everybody's standard of what looks good and what doesn't look good. So I decided like when I started doing more fashion images, I realized, hey, like a lot of the models I was getting referred to were all white models. And I was like, well, I want to shoot Black models now instead. So because I realized like, hey, why can't they be highlighted as well as all the other people that are on the cover of Vogue or here and there, but no Black people. So now like my focus has just shifted towards solely shooting Black bodies. And I know like even for me, I've realized that comes with risk. That comes with risk of, I've been told this by people that, hey, you're not shooting enough white people anymore. Like that's gonna be an issue. I was working with an agent and an agent told me that, hey, you're not shooting enough white people. We need more white men and white women in your body of work. And for a while that kind of just affected me because I was like, my goal right now, especially as a Black man, is to highlight other Black people. I think the world has had enough justification of white beauty, and now it's time to continue with Black beauty. So even like I've been, researching works of like Gordon Parks and even younger people now who are doing similar work, like Tyler Mitchell, just a photographer in America that I look up to very much. So that's just why I've been choosing to shoot Black bodies lately, and because I'm trying to find a way to shoot them appropriately. Like you look at a lot of work with high fashion photographers, and you always realize that the Black models are blacked out in every image. The shadows are crushed, and it's like there's this affection, not affection, but there's this need to make Black models look a certain way that you yourself probably wouldn't feel comfortable being, photographed. And there's a highlight, especially on shooting Black women nude or not really. There's like a fetishization of Black bodies in photography compared to, just highlighting their beauty. Instead, it's highlighting the things about us that we wouldn't really feel comfortable highlighting. So that's why my goal now is just highlighting them and finding ways to make photography, especially for Black people, fun, especially for Black models, fun, because it's not fair, to a Black model or a Black photographer to be told to shoot this a certain way, or you have to model a certain way, or do things you're not comfortable with. So for me, it's just about making a change now. And that's been my goal. I've even slowed down on doing test shoots. As much as like photography brings me joy, I've slowed down. I've like barely taken images lately because I've just been practicing and thinking about what's the next move. How can I, show people how amazing we can be without having to look a certain way on camera or behind camera, especially. So that's just been a goal for me and why I shoot what I shoot now. And yeah, I think the next part, saying I didn't really, with the presentation, my first time, so bear with me. But the next part of the presentation that I wanted to sort of talk about was just like collaboration and working with people in the photography industry, because that's the most important part. I've realized that in my very short time, that no matter how good you are, you can't do things without a team. Like a team is essential to anything you do, especially in what I do. I know it's a bit different in different types of photography. It might be different in real estate. It might be different in weddings, but even at weddings, you need help, you need assistance, you need people who are gonna support you as you go. But for me, what I do, shooting people and sometimes shooting fashion, what I've realized is that collaboration is the most important part of photography. And having a team by your side is always essential. So for me on a shoot, before I do any shoot, I always try to see if I can find a makeup artist, find a hairstylist, find somebody who can help me with lighting. And of course I can do lighting myself. I can set up everything by myself. However, like each time you invest in somebody who has given, the same way as photographers, we practice our craft. We practice taking images 1,000 times a day. That's the same way somebody else, like a gaffer, somebody's doing their light, somebody's doing hair, somebody's doing makeup, somebody's doing videography. All those people practice day by day. So including people in your work is like so essential, because you get to bring the best out of your work. I've never made any image and I've been like, this is the best image ever, without having people behind it. At first, I thought I didn't need collaboration. I always thought it was just me and my camera against the world. But I realized photography is a community. Photography art is a community. And having people by your side while you work is just the most important part of anything. So collaboration is something I always promote. I always promote any photographer. Oh, yes.
So in the area that you're living or practicing your craft, how welcoming are the creatives in that space to collaboration?
Yes. So where I am, so like for me, collaboration and being welcomed is very hard at first, because people want to get paid for their time. But so it took me a lot of time, basically. So I've developed my own team in a sense, because I realized that, especially like in New York is very, and I've been to, my mom, she was in Maryland, and I started up in Maryland, and in Maryland, there's a huge creative community there. However, they only shoot a specific type of photography. And if you kind of fit that, then it's something, they're not going to be as welcomed, basically. But I've realized, like, over the time I've been here, that collaboration, and I'm not going to lie, I should be very clear. Like, in America, I've realized people don't look at you unless they see you with thousands of followers or thousands of good images. So at first, it was very hard to get collaboration, which is why I kept paying. I kept paying for models. If I needed a hairstylist or a makeup artist, I had to pay them, because they didn't believe in the work that I was doing, because it wasn't popular on Instagram. It wasn't popular. Their friends didn't know me. So at first, it was very difficult. And it wasn't until I kept, showing that, hey, I'm capable of work, that people reach out to me instead, or people were willing to work for free without like feeling like they're being taken advantage of, especially like on a test shoot, for example. So in terms of being welcomed, it was very hard, honestly. It was very hard at first. But now that I've built myself a small little reputation, it's a bit more welcoming, or people will look at my work and they'll be like, this is something I should be honest about. Every time I show somebody my work, people don't really look at you any type of way at first until like you show them your work and they look and they see, oh, whoa, that's a cover. Oh yeah, let's connect. This happens to me a lot now that I've done a cover, which is somewhat of a big deal to some people. Now that I've done this, every time I go, like other day I was working and I was speaking to the talent and they were like, hey, I want to see it connect on Instagram, and they did. And at first they didn't think I was, any good type of photographer. They thought somebody with a camera. And then they looked on Instagram and they were like, whoa, you did this? You did this cover? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna follow you. Let me send all my friends to you. And it was just so it wasn't welcoming, which is something I've noticed. It's only welcoming after you've shown people that, oh yeah, I'm capable of doing something. That's the only time it's been welcoming to me, at least.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah,
you really have to step out and make your work visible.
basically, you really have to like. People will look at you and just like, I mean, I can't blame people for not wanting to work with me especially on like test projects. That's just for the fun of it, for the inspiration, especially, in this society where people are, you know, especially in the freelance world, because people aren't, getting paid on time. People aren't being paid their fair rates at time. So it's very hard. But after like building that reputation, then it's easy. Then people reach out to you every time you say something. If you post, hey, I need a hairstylist, people run to you once you have that reputation because they know you will deliver basically on your end. But yeah. And I guess to continue, I would just recommend to anybody who wants to collaborate with people, just be honest about what you're doing with these images. Always try to set terms and agreements on what you're doing, why you're doing it, how the operation of everything is gonna go, and then go ahead and proceed. Just have fun, always collaborate, always reach out to people, new people especially, because having a large network is, especially as a freelancer, having a large network is what helps the most. Having people who can rely on you or people who can recommend you, that's what's been helpful the most to me. So collaboration, I promote it. And I guess the next part of my presentation that I kind of wanted to talk about was like choosing photography as a full-time career. Um, it's not a popular suggestion. It's a very far-fetched profession where people are like, if you want to do photography, maybe you should get a second job so you can support your photography while you're, balancing freelancing or balancing not having consistent work. And I think for me, I I had a push and pull with it where I started working and I was at my aunt's office at first where I started working and then photography was taking off. But I was just like getting these offers every now and then, hey, come shoot with us, come do this. And I think for me, what I'm a teenager. And what for me it was like, oh wow, you can make a larger amount doing one thing than you can do because photography is a service job. And it's like, wow, you can make a larger amount of money doing a service than working from 9 to 5. And that was the trick that got me because I didn't realize these services weren't going to be consistent basically. Like it would be like, hey, come work with us. But then 2 weeks later, nothing. 3 weeks later, nothing. A month later, nothing. Or sometimes you work with a client and then you just never hear from them again. So for me, choosing photography as a career was very risky. And to be transparent always, there are times I'm like, should I do something else? But I think God has given me like every time I've been like, should I do that? And I like go ahead and I do something else. I'm like, I'm gonna pick up this job. I'm gonna pick up some shifts here. Just in the interim, I start get flooded with like offers and people are like, hey, you should help out with this or you can do this. So photography, it's a risk for me because everything in life is a risk in my opinion, but photography was a risk for me because I grew up, I grew up in Jamaica where at the end of the day, you need to be, your parents expect you to be a lawyer or a doctor or to have a profession that's gonna, get you money. That money, having a profession that brings you money is the most important part of every, Jamaican parent's dream for their child, making sure that they're well off at the end of the day. So, especially my parents, they were like, well, I don't know, you can do it, but stay in school, don't drift. And I've tried to stay, consistent with that by doing photography every chance I can, and also trying to be consistent with having like a whole other life. Like photography for me feels like you're living a double life basically, because once you enter that world, it's kind of like you can't turn around in a sense. Like you can't stop today and be like, I'm not doing this anymore because people are gonna reach out, people are gonna recommend you. It's something that happens, and once you get caught in the flow, I think that's the most important part, just getting caught in it. And once you get caught in it, things consistently happen. And for me, it was because photography is life changing to me. Honestly, photography is something that I realize brings people together. It's something I realize that people enjoy looking at. It's something I realize that can change. It doesn't have to change the world, but it can change somebody's life in a sense. Highlighting, I've done my research. I keep researching every day because that's one of the most important parts, researching and learning about other people, other photographers, what are other photographers doing every day. That's something that I try to keep up with. So every day I'm researching, I'm learning because I want to learn how I can make this job do something for me, make this job do something for my country. And I think even, having this opportunity to speak with everyone today is like it's a sign that this job can actually get you somewhere in life. This job can help you put yourself in a position to show people what you do, to bring people together. And if anybody has ever been on set, you know what it's like when you finish a shoot, how exciting it is when everybody says, all right, that's a wrap. And you all clap hands, everybody walks out. It's the best feeling anybody could ever have when a shoot ends. So chasing that feeling repeatedly is just what does it for me. That's why I choose it. I can't get this feeling working anywhere else. I can't get this feeling when I was working at my aunt's office. I can't get this feeling when I try to do a regular 9 to 5 every day. It's something I keep chasing it because I'm in love with what it is and what it does for me. And it's also fun because you can find different ways to make money. And I think anybody who's been a photographer knows you won't always be doing the photographing. Sometimes you're gonna have to be an assistant. Sometimes you're gonna do maybe some behind the scenes, but it's the feeling and it's the joy and the people that come together at each shoot or at the end of every project that makes the memories, especially, that's what makes it worth it for me. And trying to also like find financial literacy in this field is so important. And that's something I'd like to touch on just briefly. It's financial literacy in photography. You have to be financially literate. You have to have contracts. You have to know what you're signing up to do each time, because the art world or the production world is very, 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 how would I put it? I don't even know the word, what to call it, but they'll trick you. The photography and production world will try to trick you so much. They'll be like, hey, come down today and take some images for us. And then no word, you'll deliver images and they'll be like, they'll take forever to pay you. Or sometimes they won't pay you as much as was agreed. And financial literacy, I used, like, when I started, I didn't know anything. I just was taking images for the love of it. And because people saw that, people thought, hey, it's okay. Like, we don't have to pay this guy as much. He loves doing it. Like, he'll just do it for anything. But it wasn't until after a while I realized, like, I think I had this conversation with a few friends and my girlfriend. I was like, I feel like I'm doing a lot for not much return. So I was like constant in a loop of, you do a photography job, you get a decent payout, and then, or sometimes you don't get that decent payout, and then they expect you to do it again and again. But it's speaking to people, it's learning from other people. I've attended presentations and I've learned from people like, no, there's different fees, especially today's world of photography where everything is marketed, everything is going up on billboards or they're going in ads. You have to like know what you're doing. You can't get taken advantage of. You have to speak to people. You have to research what you're doing. So having contracts in place, understanding net 30, net 50, net 10 payments in place, those are things that will always help you. Negotiating your rate, because you're adding labor, you're giving them usage, you're using your vehicle to get from point A to B. And I know it might be different, especially like it might have been different 20, 30. It wasn't actually different 20, 30 years ago, because I've spoke to people who have given me tips on this, who have been in this industry for years on top of years. And I was surprised at first. I was like, photography sounds like a privilege job, because you mean I'm getting paid back for my transportation, I'm getting paid for my food, I'm getting paid for this and that. I didn't know it could include all this. I was just sending the invoice with what was agreed on, and that was it. I didn't know there was usage. I didn't know especially my image that was in British Vogue. I didn't know it was gonna be in there. It just ended up in there, and in a way, I should have been compensated for that. And not, I'm not. I would definitely not complain about it, but I would definitely say like these are things that older photographers or even newer photographers should know. You should know like what is somebody going to do with your image, because at the end of the day you provide value, and being literate on the value that you provide is like the most important thing a photographer should know each time before they step onto a job or they accept any job offer. What's the value of what I'm providing here? Am I being compensated for what I'm providing here? Is this fair? Is this what normal? Is this normal? Is this what other photographers experience when they get on a job site? So those are also things that photographers, newer photographers, or even older photographers who haven't been doing it should know, because the employers, the people who employ us as photographers, know what is right and they know what is wrong. But they only tell you what's wrong or tell you what's right when you bring it up. If you don't bring it up, they won't bring it up. And that's what I've realized, especially in the photography world in America. It's only when you bring something up that something will, be caught to attention. So if you didn't tell me that I need to pay you for using your image on a billboard for 2 years, then, you didn't tell me. That's not my problem anymore. So that's something that I've realized us as photographers, especially young photographers and older photographers, need to know. And I think the very last thing I wanted to just like briefly touch on in my presentation was a bit of a topic I was debating on for a while, and it was finding a muse. That's something that I was debating on speaking about, but I think I will. It's finding a muse. As a photographer, you want to work with people. You pick up the image, you pick up the camera because you want to shoot somebody, you want to take images of somebody. And I think finding a muse or somebody you can work with collaboratively for a long time, and you can take images, no pressure, just like take the image. Okay, the model or whoever can sit and they know that, hey, he's gonna take 6 months looking at this image, but that's okay because we're gonna do it again. And that's the fastest way to ever develop any type of photography skill, in my opinion. It's finding a muse and practicing with that person over and over and over. Like that has been the biggest boost to my career. When I started out, I had a girlfriend and I worked with her almost like every weekend or every chance we got, we'd work together and we'd shoot. And it helped my career so much. Like being able to get that in real life experience has like pushed me to be the photographer I am today, just by practicing consistently with somebody, with a real life person, because that helps prepare you for the challenges. And many of you already know this, which is just photography is unpredictable. Today, the app might tell you the weather is good, and then you get on set and the weather is horrible and you have to improvise. And having, somebody there with you while you're doing that gives you the experience of when it's time, like somebody's like, hey, shoot this for me and I'm going to pay you this. And when you get on set and it starts raining, you know what to do. Okay, let's move here. This might help instead. But getting a muse or somebody who is as equally interested in working with you is so important, and it helps you so much. It's also very relaxing, just being able to sit back and take images with no pressure. There's no money on the line. There's no deadlines to me. It's just you, a camera, and a person, and a good conversation. Talking to people, getting to know them helps prepare you to take the picture for them because, well, I know you don't like being shot on this side. You feel insecure about this. Now I know what to aim for. And it helps just having that conversation because you want to get the best image on both ends. Somebody wants to see a good image of them and you want to make a good image for yourself. Because having a muse, somebody can practice with, speak with, I think that's the best advice I could give as a photographer. And always be financially literate. That's another good advice I already mentioned. But yeah, I think that was my presentation and what I want to talk about. And I'm open to just like having any questions or any like comments. And yeah.
All right, Carson, thank you very much for
No problem.
insights you provided. Do does anyone have any questions for Carson? Or any general comments?
I want to, Bruce here, I just want to ask again. How do you, what do you earn most of your money from? What situations, what photography situations you earn most of your money from?
For me, most of my like income will come from like doing any type of like campaign, basically. That's where I will make the most money as a photographer. So like, for example, you know, I feel comfortable sharing. It's just like, for example, I've done a magazine cover and I got paid. I got paid $0 to do it. And that image was sent on billboards. That image was in a magazine. Obviously, it was all over the way. It was all over the web, and I got $0 from that shoot. And what I realized is doing like photography, like campaigns, for example, for campaigns for a brand might like want you to do like a company reached out to me recently. They want me to shoot like an ad for their wine. It's a wine company, and it's not something I do often. But like a wine company will reach out and now I'm gonna do a job for them, and that's where I found most of it happening. It's usually just been any type of campaigns, like a lookbook for a fashion brand or a campaign for like this wine company that I'm doing. That's where I will find the most money. But usually, you know, as photographers, we don't always work. You know, we don't always work. So what I've done to, you know, maintain a consistent income is just do stuff like small things like behind the scenes. I'll do that and it's decent. It's usually a decent payout. Or I will do things like production assistance because learning and being on set with more experienced photographers is always helpful to me. It's like something I would trade anything for. It's being on set, watching them work is amazing. I recently was on set with this photography duo. I was assisting them. Their name was ABDM Studio. They've done shoots with like big movie stars, people like Zendaya, and they shoot campaigns and ads all the time. And I was on set with them, and learning from them was amazing. And it was still a really good payout because the higher, like it's just the higher the level of the thing you do. So for me, it's campaigns, and then whenever I'm not shooting, I'll do production assistance because it helps me. It helps me earn and it helps me live. You know, as at a 19-year-old's age, like money comes and goes so fast before I even realize it. And then I'm like, wow, I'm getting older. I'm gonna be 20 next year. I need to start thinking about rent. So now I've started charging higher, especially for everything I do. I start charging higher, but like for me, it's just campaigns. I know I kind of went off topic, but for me, it's any type of campaign or lookbook for fashion. So the next question. Oh, yes.
Belinda asked, can you walk us through your process of taking a photograph, like one of the cover?
Okay. So
let me just share one and then you can probably discuss.
Share the official one is my favorite. I'm honestly not a huge fan of my own glamour cover. I'm not a huge fan of it. But the official
that's actually the one I picked on to share?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not one of my favorites, honestly. But this is a cover I shot for L'Official. I'm not sure how to pronounce their name, but that's why you just say L'Official. This is a cover I shot for them. So the process of shooting this cover was first like it always starts with an idea. So it's like, hey Karsten, imagine if this person was in space floating. How do we get the image of that? And then you have to find references of how to get that image. Luckily, I don't have to find pictures of people in space, but with this cover, it started with a mood board where somebody put together ideas from previous photo shoots that other people did, or they had an idea and they drew it out and they were like, I think this would be really cool, right? So that is how it usually starts. Starts with a mood board, and then it starts with figuring out lighting. So I'll go through the process of trying out different lighting before people get on set, before we have to actually do a shoot. I'll try out different types of lighting, or beforehand, there's now that we're like in 2024, they actually have like lighting setups on YouTube, or they have simulators where you can actually see what your light will look like. So usually it's either one of those. And then I tried lighting out on my assistant, or I tried that on myself sometimes, and I go from there. And then the process of taking the cover is the hardest part because you have to communicate with people. Communicating people is not my strong point. It's funny because that should be your strong point as a photographer, but I'm very shy. I stutter sometimes when I'm trying to talk. It's really bad. And sometimes when I get on set, I try to talk to people before we shoot. Like sometimes I sit with a talent for like 40 minutes. If it's not like a shoot that has a strong deadline, we'll sit for like 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and we'll just talk. And we'll just talk about anything that comes to mind. So when it's time now to get on set and take this image, it's like, you're just taking images of your friend basically. And for me, on the technical side, I do a lot of adjusting during the shoot where I'll have a set idea and then I'll change as I go. I'll change depending on what feels right and what doesn't feel right. So for this shoot, like the cover, for example, I was working with a gaffer who was not taking directions well, basically. So that's something I had to adjust for. They weren't taking directions well, and that's the most important part. Somebody who will listen to you while you're doing this. So I just went in and tried to explain my idea, and I ended up having to change it. So change everything around, and that's how we got this image, just by working with the time crunch and also trying to communicate very well. And there's a lot of pressure while shooting. There's, especially in fashion, there's people like right over your shoulder, like, hey, like, can I see? And your eye will be like right in the viewfinder and they'll just be puffing on your neck, ready to see. But you have to just hold your composure basically, and try to get the best image you can. And I think the process is not as unique and highlighted as people want it to be sometimes. I think when I ask this question as well to other people, it's usually like I'm expecting like a really grand explanation, but I realize that it's just knowing your technicalities. That's all it is. I know it has to be like, if I need a white outfit to stand out against a black backdrop, then this is what I have to do. This is how I have to light it. This is what I'm going to do. You have to know your lighting set. It's about educating yourself, basically. Knowing how to talk to people, which I'm bad at, but knowing how to talk to people to, ease them up for a cover, knowing how to communicate with your team members that this is what you need to do. And then the image gets taken, because if all the other parts of it are there, if the lighting is good, if the model is standing good, if you have your camera on the right settings, the image is just going to come out good, or it's going to come out the way it needs to be. That's the best, explanation. For me, I try to have a more intimate and personal relationship when I shoot now, because I realize I feel better that way. So I try to know the people. I try to, get to know them beforehand, maybe hop on like a really small phone call, or the day before, we meet up and we're on set together practicing before the actual shoot day, especially if it's like a campaign or a cover where they allow you to practice before. And I get to know them, and I hope and pray all the time. I'm not the best, and I wish I was, but I always just hope and pray, and just hope that God helps me as I go. That's the process for me. A lot of prayer and hoping that the technicalities are there.
All right, no problem. Amanda had her hand up.
Yes.
Hi. My first question is, does my fan bother you guys? Can you hear it too much or no?
I can hear it. I can make out what you're saying. I hear it.
All right. I'll struggle in the heat. I think that's about my time. I wanted to ask a couple of things before, but actually one kind of trumps it. No, you said that you well, actually, my question is, are you planning on pursuing any education in it? As in, like, are you going to get your bachelor's based on the age that you are now and the amazing experience that you've had and publications that you've had so far? Do you have any interest in pursuing, say, a higher level education to get to continue? But I mean, other than that, your collaborations definitely do an experience to earn you a lot of knowledge. So that's my question: is what do you think about
Yes.
doing that degree?
Yes. I'm still gonna get my degree, and that's like the most important thing to me, having that degree. I asked myself this question a lot, like, should I really be pursuing education if I find this craft so good and if I'm really good at this craft, right? But I've realized that education is still education, like the college experience. It's just more than, having a book in front of you and taking exams. You're also learning how to
Just to
stay on
be
deadlines.
specific, you mean a degree in photography?
Actually, no, I'm actually pursuing something in I've been thinking about pursuing something in software engineering. That's actually
Okay.
what I've been thinking
Yeah.
about.
I just saw Belinda just asked, so I wanted to clarify.
But yeah,
Okay.
a degree. I've been thinking about either computer science or something specifically like tuned to, yeah, I think it's just computer science. That's what I'm aiming for. I started out
So
doing
why not
business management.
photography?
I didn't choose photography as the degree because I realized that I wouldn't I wouldn't learn anything from it, because this is because I was reaching out to like people who've already had the photography degree and asking them questions, and it was so funny. I don't know if it's a thing in America specifically, and I might be wrong with my answer, but it was like a thing where I'd be on set and I'd be talking to somebody and they'd be like, "Yep, this is how they showed us to put your sandbag on your C stand in school." And I was like, I'm gonna pay to go to school and learn how to put a sandbag on a C stand. I don't know if that's something that
It's so much more than that, but
that's
okay.
yeah, that it is, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not getting any, like, from the people I've spoke to, I haven't really learned much about what the photography degree is like. And each time I try to like learn about it, I always just get sidetracked. So for me, I'm still really inexperienced in learning about what the degree has. But I think for me,
Mhm.
I've realized that, okay, I'm good at what I'm doing, in my opinion, and in the opinion of other people. So how about I just spend time, you know, in a sense, not treating photography as a hobby, but spend time learning, spend time having fun with it, and then seeing where it takes me from there. But still pursue, something my parents tell me, my friends tell me, is always have the backup plan. And I am so
Mhm.
fearful and so nervous all the time in life that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have that backup plan. So I've decided,
Mhm.
okay, I'm gonna get a regular degree. So if God forbid
Mhm.
something happens and I can't take images anymore, at least I can be safe,
Yeah,
because that's as
that's
a
definitely a good idea.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
I
that's
can
what they
get
tell us.
behind that. I can get behind having a backup plan.
Yeah.
In regards to the degree, though, and what you've been told, I would have to say that you just maybe been talking to the wrong people. Because while it's their truth, it's not everyone's truth. I personally have my bachelor's in fine arts in photography, and I teach here at Edna Manley. Now, usually, or not usually, but typically, the reason why you would continue further, like I'm actually exploring getting my master's, and the reason for that is because I do want to teach. You have to have your master's in order to teach college. So that is truth. But I would encourage you, sorry, to explore speaking to other persons who actually have a degree, right? Have a degree in, sorry, talk to more people who have that degree to see what their experience is. Now, I'm not saying that to take away your experience. I'm saying also to talk to different schools. So, for example, SCAD is an absolutely
Yes.
phenomenal school. And when even just go on the website and read their testimonials, their students come out graduating, working for Nike, working for Microsoft, working for all these top companies, and they have a degree in photography or in any form of creative art. So it goes back to my point where it depends on who you're talking to, right? I have my degree and I've done, I would like to say that I have done more with it than I, I haven't done as much with it as I would have liked to. I certainly don't have the field experience that you do, and that is something that is absolutely phenomenal, and nobody can ever take that away from you. But points can be argued for both education as well as pursuing photography outside of education, because there are a number of photographers here in Jamaica, wedding photographers particularly, who are self-taught, and nothing can trump in the field experience, right? Because, and it goes to regular school where what you learn in school doesn't always equate to what is in the real life, in the real world. And I know personally my students who have started with me at Edna Manley and they drop out of college or at Edna Manley because they're getting better experience, better knowledge, more up to date stuff, and more real life hands on and money in the field. So you can argue both points. I would just encourage you to talk to other people who have the degree. One thing I would say to you, which is a beneficial factor, but it's not only from the education world in terms of you don't have to go to school to do this. I would encourage you to research the masters, right? You had spoken about film when you just came on, and I'm a purist at heart. You need to know about people like Ansel Adams, like Clyde Butcher. You know, you need to research those people, and they will influence your art today, right? So it's really good to get to know the masters who were, um, to have a good foundation to bring you to a higher level. It's it's something that will help you, you know. So I'm going to throw
Yes.
this question to you. You don't have to answer it now, but do you know how photography came about? Do you know the history of it? You know, not saying you have to know it to be good and successful in your field as you are, because you are well established at 19, and it's, pardon the French, but it's fucking amazing. You know, the experience
Right.
that you have right now to shot for Vogue and whatnot. That's amazing. I don't have that experience, but I have other experience. I have multiple exhibitions, publications, you know, and you touched on some really, really good points tonight about collaboration. Definitely, absolutely do that, work more. Financial literacy, that is something that you learning that now at 19 is probably one of your most valuable life lessons. Because, for example, myself here at 37, still young, I'm just now learning how to truly be financially literate. And learning something like that at your age is a gift that you'll you'll reap the rewards for many, many years. So you touched on amazing points, and I appreciate that. Just talk to more people in the education side of things, and you know, as you said, the college experience, it was one of my best years of my life. I met some amazing people, had some amazing experiences, literally walked the swamp that crocodiles, alligators live in, and I'm walking the swamps with the master photographer Clive Butcher, step in a hole and the water is up to here, get some amazing photos, and go into a dark room. If you want to go into film, go into a dark room.
Yes,
Um,
I've been there. I love it.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think to answer the first one is it's definitely an experience thing and talking to people thing where people, especially younger people here, or people I'm talking to are in their kind of like they're just leaving college and their answers are always a little more funny than serious, where it's like, oh man, all we do is learn how to, you
Yeah.
know, put this on that and that's it. So I think for me it's been
This
discouraging
was
a
the
bit
wrong street.
because I don't know what exactly we're doing. So even in school I've tried to pick up like an arts class, or that's what the next plan is, to pick up an art class to learn more about
Mm-hmm.
photography, because I want to learn why I'm doing what I'm doing. But there's not,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a part I've been lacking, which is the resources to find out,
Mm-hmm.
what exactly am I doing, what's the history behind it. So that touches to the second
Yes.
question. I actually don't know why it began. I actually do not actually I don't know.
Do
I
you
don't know
know
why
what
it
the word
began.
photography means?
I think for me, the general answer says, capturing a moment in time or an image, but I don't know the
So
official meaning.
this as a quick history lesson is that the word photography comes from the Greek origin photos, graphy. Photos
Mm.
meaning light and graphy meaning to draw. So photographers, we draw with light. That's what we're doing. We're
Oh,
light draws, if you will. And photography actually started, uh, I want to say, uh, long time ago, like in the 1700s, kind of that age. 1839 is coming to me as it's a very significant point. That's when photography became public to the whole, became available. The daguerreotype became available to the whole public, but
yeah.
it actually was formed as a science,
Oh, wow.
right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I could go on and talk about this for a long time. So
I
that we can
definitely
put
have
that, you
to,
and me, in a conversation later.
yeah, I definitely have
But
to learn
you
more about
definitely
that.
want to. I
Yeah, I
definitely encourage
think,
it because you know what? If anything, it would actually make your appreciation and your passion, which by the way, your passion is just pouring out of you, and I don't even know you right now. It's pouring out of you. So when you learn the history of it, I suspect
yes,
that your passion would grow even deeper for it.
I'm
Because right
gonna
now it's
learn.
probably just about, yeah, you love taking photographs because you have that eye. You know, there's students who come to my classes because, oh, they just want to be a photographer and they can't take picture. No, no, no. We are photographers and we create photographs, right? Ansel Adams said, photographs are created. That's how that
Yeah,
the whole planning, the collaboration that you talk about, that's the whole team creating, coming together to create that photograph. You know, the time that he took out in um the great parks to set up his tripod and his view camera to take those pictures. He's creating something. So when
yes.
you learn the history of it, I think you will have a deeper appreciation and phenomenal experience about it, you know, because as I was kind of asking right now, it's about, hey, I love taking pictures because I love what I see and their exposure and the money, right? That's mainly what you're spoken about right now. So the history will
Yeah,
help to deepen your love for
I
it.
definitely will. I think for the history, I'll answer and then I'll get Belinda and Mr. Bruce. So I think the history part, the history of it is something that I haven't explored much, but I think with the history of certain topics in photography, something that I have been exploring. So like right now, I'm working on this Josephine Baker. I hope I didn't say it. I feel like I forgot the first name, but Josephine Baker. She was like a French dancer who lived. She was an American person who lived in France, and she was a dancer. And I'm doing a project on her because I'm learning about like why was she presented this way, and it was because specifically white people love to see like black performances. I even learned that the reason why
Yeah.
you go to like it's like a movie, like imagine a movie theater. The reasons why there are seats so high up, not because we want you to look from everywhere. It's because people of higher class used to go up there and they wouldn't partake in the history, or they wouldn't partake in the
Okay.
culture of black people.
I
So
didn't know that.
if you go to like a stage, like a theater, they had
Mm-hmm.
like performers like Josephine Baker. They had her,
Yes.
dance in her suit and her banana suit, and she would dance
Mm-hmm.
on stage, and they would sit all the way up at the top, and they just watch her. And then below her,
Yeah.
below them would be all the black people, and at top it's all the white ones, and they
Yeah,
would sit and they'd
that
watch.
makes sense. So when you say a theater, you don't necessarily mean a movie theater. You
It
more
doesn't have to
mean
be
like
like any theater
a
setting. That's why we have them.
that has a hierarchy. That
Yeah.
makes sense. That reminds me of why pockets were not part of the
So
females'
I think
wards,
those
but
are
that's a
the
whole different
history.
story.
Yeah, that's like the
Yes, so
history I
that see
try to understand.
all the more
Yeah,
reason for you to understand the history, and then
yeah,
going to the topic you spoke about, why aren't black people represented in photography even more? Why is that? Because that's what your focus is right now,
yeah,
and it's because you just discovered that, but go back into the history and dig up as to why, and then you can bring it back about because when I say bring it about, meaning give more light to it, make
yeah,
that light shine, because a lot of things in today's world we don't know, we accept
yeah,
that they exist without understanding why they came about and
yeah,
when you understand the why, then you realize, oh crap, this is a big deal. A simple
Yeah,
thing
a
as
lot of
the fact that women's pants don't have pockets, it had to do with controlling us women and thinking that women who had pockets were witches that carried potions. That's why we don't have pockets in our pants.
it's, I didn't
And
know
that
that.
still carries forward today. Yes. In the
And
French,
even
they didn't want us to carry political paraphernalia, so they took away pockets.
I didn't know that.
So
And then I think even with I think with black photography, especially with black people in photography, a big thing that every photographer should know about is negrophilia and what that means, because that's a big reason for a lot of the why images are the way they are, because it's white people love black people. They love looking at black,
mhm.
they like our activities, but when it comes to our beauty, they don't see that. But when we dance, they love that. When we
Yeah,
sing, they
for
love that.
entertainment purposes.
And that's where negrophilia comes from, the love for
Mhm,
black people, or negros, or the fetish. It's
mhm.
actually the fetishization of black people,
That's
or
the word.
negros. That's the
Yeah.
meaning of that, and that dictates a lot of our culture today, especially in
Yes.
photography. So there's a
Yeah,
lot
it's
of,
very
like,
avant-garde. So that talks to about the different avant-garde artists. So if you don't know what
yes,
that phrase means, definitely
yeah,
research it.
I
You know,
saw, yeah, I
avant-garde
definitely
is
saw
about
that.
yeah, it's about movement. You know,
Yeah,
and yeah, it's important. So it will make your fire and your passion brighter. You know.
thank you. And
So.
I definitely will research
Mhm.
that. Thank you, Miss Amanda. And for Why Not Business, I think Why Not Business to complement my photography career. I think I didn't pick business because I realized that I was extremely bad at it. I was extremely bad at, like, and that's the thing. Like, I was bad at it, so I should have learned how to be good at it. But I decided that because I was bad at business things and negotiations, I was gonna learn how to, like, get somebody to help me with that. And the privilege that we have as photographers is that there are people out there that see our worth and want to represent us and want to negotiate everything for us. And that was the avenue I decided to take, which is reach out to somebody like an agent, a photographic agent, who was going to help negotiate everything for me. So, you know, we're all here, we're all talking already. So to be transparent, I reached out once to, like, I think a client or somebody reached out to me and they wanted me to do images for them. And then I had an agent go and speak to them. And the agent was like, well, they want you to do this for $1,500, and it's going on their campaigns and their billboards, and they're going to use it for years and years. This should
That's
actually
nothing.
cost this should actually cost $10,000. And
Yeah,
then they're like,
15,000.
well, not even 10,000. They're like, well, what about the team? The team is gonna come. So the bill just kept going and going and going. And I was like, being
Mm-hmm.
from Jamaica, a Jamaican teenager is not used to hearing so many thousands of US dollars just being thrown about in thin air. I was scared, but I realized this is the business of it and this is what they're doing. So I decided to leave the business things to somebody who could actually manage it, because I was bad at it and I would probably mess up every business offer that came to me.
Mm-hmm.
And learning business it wasn't exciting to me. I was always a fan of sciences and anything technical. So I was like, I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm so grateful.
That's why photography fits for you. Science
Yeah,
and technical. That's why photography fits.
I was just very
Yeah.
grateful. Yeah, I was just grateful that there's these
Yeah.
things that we can have where somebody will represent us, somebody will negotiate for us because somebody sees our worth as artists, or somebody just wants to make money off of us. But either way you take it, somebody can help you with these things. And I've learned you have to get lawyers and all these things as photographers. Thankfully, I haven't reached that stage yet, but I definitely see that it's gonna come soon.
No,
And yeah,
definitely you have to. You
yeah,
have to. Especially at the stage you have um what's the word, like you've propelled to, you
yeah,
definitely need to have a lawyer. I mean, from one of the examples of when I teach my students that even just by having, if you're photographing your family, have a contract, because as you said, people will take advantage of you. And I will extend that further to even that person that you're leaving the business up to. You need to know, you need to
yeah,
take that business class. If it is one thing that I regret in my college years is that I did not take a business class, it's that.
yeah.
right? Because even that person that you say, okay, this is my agent, just talk everything, they can swindle you.
Yeah, they
Let it
can.
be known, they can swindle you. They can say you're getting a deal for 15,000, but it's really 25,000, and you're only seeing 15,000 of the 25,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, business is boring. That's the same reason why I didn't do it in college, because business is boring. I'm allergic to numbers. I'm mathematically, what do you call it, dyslexic, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I didn't take
Yeah.
a business class, and I regret it, because there are a lot of things people have done that to me. I've given clients images, and they just paid me for the 3 hours that I took their event, and the over 100 images that they got from me, I saw nothing. And that
Yeah.
was in Uptown Jamaica, because they
Yeah.
can, and they
And they know
did.
they have the money.
Okay.
So it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
of
you have
course.
to like. I didn't. So like with business, like
Have to
I
have
did one
contacts.
semester of business, and but even with photography, I think another advice is just always speak to other people. If you don't
Oh
just speak to
yes.
the agent, like whenever something comes up for me and it's like, hey, we want you to do this for this, I go to them. Then I go to somebody else. Then I go to my mom, and I'm like, do you really think this is fair? And then I research. I do my own
Yeah.
research, and that's just what you
Yes,
have to
that is what
do.
you have
You
to
have
do.
to
Yeah,
protect yourself, and
absolutely.
you have to learn, because people, especially like now I'm realizing, like people really will try to take advantage of you, and that's just
Absolutely.
something you have to protect.
Absolutely.
But
And what you
Mr.
should do
Bruce,
is
oh sorry.
find. No, I was just continuing your point, 'cause I know
Yes.
Bruce has I don't know if you've answered his question actually. Um but you need to befriend experienced photographers. So like, befriend
Yes.
somebody who they can say, this is what your agent is telling you, but it really isn't that way. So make an ally with other more
Yeah.
older, more experienced photographers, so that
Every that is the
to
goal.
say, okay, your agent is bullshitting you or not. And you're right,
Yeah.
talk to other people. Don't talk to too many, because you get yourself confused and overwhelmed, and then you freeze. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Karsten,
Yes,
yes,
Mr.
Mhm.
Bruce.
yeah, I'm really enjoying your passion and learning a lot from you, and
Definitely.
you will be a great creative in the
Thank you,
future.
sir.
I just want to ask you about this image that Dwayne has put up here.
Yes.
Were you commissioned to do this image for this magazine? One. Second question is, I noticed looks like her right hand at the
Yeah.
bottom. Why was it done this way? But I love this.
Yes. So first one, was like commission. All they gave me a hotel room, and it was a really cheap hotel, and I'm not complaining because I had somewhere to sleep for the night, and I was grateful. But I wasn't commissioned. They did actually not pay for this. It was actually like the most shocking thing when I realized, like, I was told this. So I remember I was hanging out with my girlfriend, and we were talking about that, and it came through, and it was like the next day, and I was like, do I take the chance and do these two covers that I know will propel my career forward for no money, or just sit with none of it? So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna take the risk. And they didn't. It was a really bad set. The stories behind these covers was not as glamorous as the cover itself, because it was a real
That happens.
fashion set, in a sense where people are shouting, people aren't providing food, you're just there for hours. It was one of those real fashion sets where the bad fashion stories come from. But
That
yeah, I didn't
sounds
get paid for it.
scary.
It was actually
Right.
very scary, and I didn't for a while. I felt very uncomfortable even taking the credit for these images, just because of the set. Like, I think it wasn't until months after I finally decided to share the fact I did these covers, and then people were people, and they were like, "Oh wow, that's amazing! I didn't know you could do this." But at first, I didn't even want to take any credit for doing it, until I realized, you know what, I did it. Let me own it up, and this is the cover I did. So yeah, I didn't get paid, and I've realized that's the thing with editorials, they don't pay. And then the second question was, why was her
But they
hand
should.
exposed? I actually asked the same question when I saw this from the editor. I was like, wait, why is the hand exposed? It's off. Why isn't it blacked out like the rest of the image? And I think the editor for that magazine told me that the original inspiration had her hand slightly exposed as well. So he wanted to keep it. But I thought it made more sense to black it out, but they wanted to keep it. Yeah, I mean, now that I look at it, sometimes I'm like, well, where would her hand be? At least now we know where her hand is. It's on her knee. So it's like it's iffy. Sometimes people don't notice it, sometimes people do. And every time I just say the same, I ask the same question. Why is it there? I don't know. They just wanted it like that. And that's another thing with, photography. People, everything you do is good up until they don't agree with it. And then it's their image and not yours. So
All I say, Karsten, it's growing on me. So I like it now.
yeah, it
You know,
takes
I
some
never
time.
knew, I never saw it until Bruce pointed it out. And I like,
Yeah, sometimes you just really don't notice it. And then you look and you're like, you stare at it and you think on it and you're like, okay, it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. But yes, Mr. Doing.
I wanted to ask, what, when you're doing editorial type pieces, how many of them you actually get the opportunity to edit the images?
With editorials, I've actually never had the opportunity to edit any images for like editorials that are being published. That's not, they usually have an editor. Sometimes I try to just give notes and be like, hey, I think this should be removed. Like, for me, if I was to give notes to the editor, I would have been like, hey, how about if her hand is going to be showing, right? How about we highlight her hand so that it looks like her other hand, so all of it connects. It's not just like a dim shadow. Or I would have been like, hey, I think her eye is, the other eye is showing too much. How about we black it out so it just looks like one eye showing? Those are things I would have brought up, but usually I don't get the chance to tell editors what I can give notes, but usually the person who like commissions you, they're the ones who are like, oh, maybe they give the notes on editing basically. I've never had the opportunity, only like on lookbooks where I actually don't edit at all anymore. It's something I should be transparent about. But I will like give directions. But I actually don't edit anymore. I've been working with a retoucher for months now because I've realized I get the best quality and I get the best image when I work with somebody who understands how to actually edit an image. So I realized I don't have the skills to edit an image. I don't have the knowledge. I don't have, I also sometimes just don't have enough time to edit things. And I realized work with a retoucher who you can send an image to, you pay a very small fee because some retouchers, especially at my level, some retouchers, the prices change. You can pay as little as $4 for a retoucher. And then sometimes you have to pay $1,500 per image. And it's like very crazy that the price is so high, but it's what the client wants or what they approve. But yeah, I work with a retoucher, so I completely stopped editing and I've just been working with a retoucher to get the best quality out of every image recently. And that's what I think is important, having somebody who understands your images as well, because you can edit. Editing does play a huge part. Even before time, like Richard Avedon, they were editing their images in the dark room. They were actually, making sure it looked a certain way. That's why it looks like that. So work with somebody, or I just say, yeah, I've never really edited and I've stopped doing it completely and just been working with retouchers because I've realized they're the most helpful and they bring out the best quality in my work.
That's probably a challenge I have, handing off my work to somebody else.
As long as you give notes, just give those notes.
I think I'm too much of, or I want to be in control. So that's one of the things I found with myself while learning. Persons would take the track of learning the basics of photography, going out and shooting, getting experience, and then come back and learn to edit.
Yeah.
On my journey,
I started that way as well.
I learned to shoot and edit at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I started out with the same process of like shooting, then going home and I was sitting in Lightroom and I was editing. And then I kept doing it. And it's just like, as I kept growing, I was like, you know what, I think I have a better chance of getting a good image if I work with a retoucher, because they understand it and they will, if I give directions, the good thing is I can give as much directions as I need, and they will, you know, turn around it until it's approved. That's the best part I would say about it. And that's just what I've been doing. At first it was hard because I was like, are they gonna give me back an image and every pore in the skin is highlighted? But then, you know, I kept finding people. I had to search. I did a lot of searching. I found somebody. Her name is Joyce, and I've been working with her for a very long time now, and I've never really had an issue. So that's another thing. You have to find. That's again goes with collaboration. You just have to find somebody who is gonna work
Like
with you
Kian
on the level
pointed
you
out,
need.
a high level retoucher is phenomenal. Kian pointed that out as
Yeah,
well.
they're really good,
Yeah.
and they can take an
That's
image from A to B. Like, it's amazing what they can do. But that should never like discourage you from wanting to get it right in camera, because the closer you are to
Thank
it
you. Oh
in
God, I think I
camera,
just love you more now. I love that. I love you. I love you
the
for
close,
saying that
yeah,
because I literally like slap my students, get it right in
yeah.
camera. Do not rely on editing and retouching. Okay, good.
The closer you
Mm.
are to getting it in camera is the best way it's gonna come out. Like, the closer it is in camera is the faster it'll get to the final image. Like, do it right,
Absolutely.
because if they over edit, you can
Yeah.
tell it's edited, and that's not, you know,
Oh
that's
gosh,
not
yes.
fun. You don't want to look. It doesn't want to look edited
Yeah.
at all. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I would have to give you props that you are willing to hand your images over to other people. Me, I know when you were saying it's because you don't want to give control. For me, is me afraid that people teach my images, right?
oh,
That's
yeah,
kind of where I'm afraid of that. Um, I don't do much editing in my work. Um, I shoot to get it right in camera. I would rather take 3 hours getting it right than spending 6 hours editing an image, right? I'd much
yeah,
rather do that, but regardless, my style is not one to edit much, just a simple thing. I just happen to have it here. These are my cyanotypes that I've made into cards, and when I scanned them in, I just edited the color to get it right to what it was truly, because the
yeah,
scanner scanned it in as a muddy gray, right? So that's not genuine, that's not real. But I like that that is the way you think to get it right in camera, and you're right. Getting it as close to the real thing that you want in camera is the fastest way to get the end result. That's a really good point.
yeah. That's something that I've been grateful
Yeah.
for, just working with retouchers and getting it right in camera, because a lot of, and even with editing, I think for my
Makes my job
images,
easier too.
yeah, it really does. And for me, like, when it comes to editing photos, I try not to do like way too much. I try not to get them to do way too much. I just try to get them. I think for me, I look for like a soft, for me, when it comes to my images, I try to get something that has detail, but it's also, there's a softness to the image, and there is the light, everything. I'm not asking for drastic changes. I just want to see that the image looks how it should look with like some extra touch-ups. That's all I ever ask
Yeah.
for. And, contrast, anything like that, where I might have, yeah, as Kian said, I might have like blown out on one side where the light wasn't as strong, and I'll just be like, can you turn that down a little bit for me? And they'll go ahead and do it. So yeah, editing is
Yeah.
key, and it's all, you never should feel bad about editing, because all the greats edit. The best, they all edit. So I know some people film. There's some belief that when you shoot film, you shouldn't edit the images. I know some people believe that, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with editing. Try it. It helps, makes it look
But
better.
There's nothing
the
wrong with
dodge
it.
and burn
It's
is
just
still an edit.
Yeah,
Yeah, dodging and burning in the dark room is editing. We're doing it from way back when we had cut out holes in paper just to make,
yeah,
a certain area brighter versus darker. Um, and that is a part of editing as well. But my thing is that just don't rely heavily on
yeah,
editing. Don't let that be, don't let that be how you work. Like, oh, I
yeah,
can just fix it in Photoshop. Mm-mm.
yeah.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
And there's
Let's
other
not. Don't
times
have
where
to
a
go that way.
client doesn't want to pay for an editor, so you have to be aware of that. Like a client does not always want to pay for an editor. Sometimes a client looks at you and is like, why don't you just edit it yourself? Why do you have to pay for somebody? Don't you know to do it? So you have to learn that skill as well. It's a very soft skill to learn, and it's helpful. But what impact? I actually love that question about AI photography, because I think especially now is a time where AI is so prominent and everybody wants to like know how AI is going to affect photography. I think in my personal belief, I think people need to not worry as much. And I say this because every time something with AI comes out, people bash it. Like there was a very, I think it was a few months ago, there's a very was a campaign came out by Under Armour, and that campaign had so many AI prospects in it, and it was heavily it took other people's work actually. It took other people's work. The directors who worked on the campaigns before, there were editors who worked on campaigns before, and they took the editor, they took the photographers, they took the cinematographers, they took all their work and combined it to get this really cool image. And I was like, it was a video, and I was like, why did they do that? And then I checked the comments. This thing was getting bashed online. Nobody liked it, and people were standing up for what was right. So I think when AI in the next 5 years, I think people should not worry as much, because we're all human and we're the ones who are making the technology, training the technology. And if humans, us, right, want to say no, we're saying no. We're showing this, like, the person who is making these AI edits, they're gonna be like, dang, nobody likes my AI edits. I guess I should just stop.
Well, have
and
you heard the latest with Adobe?
I think
The
I
latest
did see that.
controversy with Adobe. And
Where
it's absolutely ridiculous. So many photographers are literally canceling their Adobe subscriptions, which they turn around and charge you $80 cancellation fee. But the fact that Adobe has the audacity to now say to you, you can't even use the program unless you agree that we can own your images and we have license to use whatever you create. Like Adobe let them head or something. What about all those people that have NDAs? People like myself that work on nudes and my clients don't want their images shown, and because I use Adobe Cloud, have the right to use my image and do what you want with it. Everybody's boycotting Adobe Photoshop right now, and they're even saying that if they find that you're using an older version of Photoshop, they can sue you. That's what they're trying to come up with.
But that's the thing. That's why I realized, like, yes, the corporate people are trying, like, the corporate environment is trying to push an agenda. But I'm a big, I listen. It's fine. I listen to a lot of Bob Marley. I listen to a lot of, like, Garnet Silk. I believe that at the end of the day, people will stand up as people and fight against whatever is whatever is being pushed on them. And I see people all the time pushing against these AI agendas, pushing against everything. And in my opinion, it's not gonna last. It's fun to think about, but at the end of the day, there's no true enthusiast or anybody who is interested in this art, and they're not gonna get nobody who,
that you say that.
Nobody who is actually interested in this art is gonna get up and be like, I want the AI image. People want to get out. People want to shoot. People want to make mistakes on set. Nobody wants to fabricate something online and then, oh wow, there it is. Like, no, people want to go to art shows.
Huh?
I'm sorry?
You do have the lazies.
Wait, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you properly. What did
I was saying that you do have the lazies, the persons who
Oh,
are
yeah.
don't
Yeah,
want
so,
to learn the craft, they don't want to do something the right way. So
but every time they do it, they
out.
get shunned for it. It's like, why? So I think people just, like, at the end of the day, we're all human. The person who owns Adobe is a human. And at the end of the day, they're going to realize, oh, wow, nobody likes what I'm doing. My company is losing clients. I've lost 1 billion people.
So I think one of the things that Adobe is trying, or Adobe is banking on, is that so many persons started out with Adobe, have built workflows around Adobe products, and nobody likes change.
Yeah.
So, unlike myself, I'm in IT.
Doing.
If I need to learn a new tool to do something, I'm going to learn it.
Yeah,
Listen, I
I
have the
actually
button ready to
started
press for
swapping
affinity
out.
photo, you know.
Okay?
but you
Affinity
know,
photo, I have that in my cart right now, ready to press just for $34. Affinity photo
Well,
two,
I've
ready
owned
for
all
press it.
three affinity programs for about 2 or 3 years now.
Dwayne, you
Oh,
know how
wow.
I feel. You know how I feel. Just putting
no,
it
And
out
who is
my
that?
there.
Tell me how you
I
feel. Who is
actually
that? Tell me how you feel.
started
I
migrating
s-
my workflows that I had in Adobe over to Affinity.
and I see what Ken posted, but my personal belief, and any you can disagree, but my personal, I don't trust corporate companies. I don't trust them. I don't agree with them. There's
Mm,
the corporate world is so scary to me. So like when I see like they put something out like we didn't change anything, I don't know that, because
yeah,
if you've ever worked with anybody who owns a company and you're standing right next to them, they're like humans. They're changing their policies. They might see something come out and they're gonna defend themselves. They're gonna be like, no, he didn't do that. It's that's just what they say. But you never know what
yeah,
is. Only you know what is real. Only you can decide what you're gonna do. So
yeah.
they say this, you can either believe them or not believe them, and you can continue to use it or not use it. But sometimes
It is
because
said the
I've
reason why Adobe is doing the thing that they're doing is that they can use our images to train AI to eventually replace us photographers and graphic designers and graphic artists. That's what they're saying. They want to
yeah
train AI. That's the reason why they're saying it. But I appreciate the point that you made that we shouldn't really worry because we as humans we fight back. But it's unfortunately it's not everyone, right? Because
yeah
I literally have a friend who runs a food truck and he has said to me, why would I pay a photographer hundreds of thousands of dollars to do some food photography when I can just type into AI and say, make me a chicken burger with lettuce and tomato and a sesame seed bun on this background, just describe it, and there he has it. That's his food. There's some people who just do not
yeah.
see the value in what we do. And
I
so for
I
them,
completely agree.
AI is, yeah, but boy,
But
it's,
I think every time somebody finds the easier alternative or the cheap alternative, they don't get the results they want, and that's the turnaround.
yeah,
That's the unfortunate side
yeah,
for them. Every time somebody's like,
yeah.
I'm gonna just focus. Like I was on. You also, I can't trust that. I need to be able to trust. People want to trust what their eyes can see, and I've been like ordering
Yeah.
food before, and I saw this place. I was like, oh wait, all these images are AI, and I didn't want to order from there anymore. And that was a human reaction. That wasn't me
Yeah.
even being a photographer. I was like, I don't know what kind of food is gonna come. I don't know how your food looks
But you
like.
know that they've been doing that in the food industry for years though, right? You know
With
that when you're advertising like what do you
the
call
touch,
it?
yeah, I remember there's like a
Ice
Burger King
cream.
thing.
Ice
Yes,
cream
Mashed
is
potato.
mashed potatoes. Milk is glue.
yes, I've saw
Yes.
that before, especially with, I think it was a popular thing that came out with Burger King on how they like
Mm-hmm.
they touched up their images and it was really nice. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I think the only
It not go
difference, only
so.
factor
Tell
here
it so.
is that we know these people. So it's like I went to Burger King how many times? You've been to Burger King.
Yeah.
Everybody's been to Burger King. So when Burger King touches up their images, it's not that big of a
We know say
concern
it not go so.
because
Yeah.
we know it, we know
It's
what
false
Burger King is like.
advertising.
But it's when it's a
Yeah.
new restaurant that's doing it,
A new
then I'm
place.
like,
Yeah, I would afraid to.
how can I trust it? You have to build your reputation before you can like for example,
That's
as a
valid point.
photographer,
Yeah.
you have to build your reputation before you can tell somebody else to go edit your images because
Mm-hmm.
now your client is gonna want to expect something that you can't deliver. So before you go ahead and you're like, I can do this, I can do that, I'm gonna take the cheap route. So if I hire a retoucher off the bat and when it's time that I have to edit it myself, what am I gonna do? So it's like you have to build like these reputations, and the same with restaurants that want to take the easy route. Like I believe we shouldn't beg for their business because
Mm-hmm.
something else will come along the way. However, it's like they also need to realize nobody's going to like really trust this experience if they can't actually see the real life behind it. Like you're telling me nobody
Right.
has ever
Yeah.
been to this restaurant. Why can't I find people or images of people at your restaurant or images or you have like a campaign and people are holding your food? Like that's what builds trust. That's why bigger companies invest in these ads even when they already have this establishment. I'm sure like companies
Mm-hmm.
like KFC are so established. They don't need to put out another ad ever again and their business will probably still flow as well but it's like they do it because it shows trust, and that's the whole point of these things. Especially when you work on a
Yes.
commercial, an ad, they put it in the notes. We want to show trust. We want to show this. We want to show people being happy here. So it's like the smaller companies who decide, oh no, AI is the new wave. They don't realize the bigger companies don't do that because they know what people want.
It's
So
about
they're writing it
trust.
down. We
Yeah.
want to see this model smiling. I've been there, and sometimes it's bad, but you see people on set, they're like, no, we need her to be smiling while she holds this. We need her to be happy. And that's what's encouraging me to go to your
Because
restaurant.
why? It's all about emotion and
Yeah.
connecting with people.
So the good,
Yeah.
and it's the same with
And AI
photography.
ain't got that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same with photography. If you
Yeah.
know what you're doing is good and what you're doing is
Yeah.
creating emotion, people are going to love your images. Like I can see
Yes.
images from Gordon Park from years and years ago, and I love it.
Gordon Park,
But I'm
yeah.
going to see an AI image and I'm not going to be interested. I'm just going to swipe or click off.
Yeah.
Like it's not the
Yeah.
same
'Cause you
feeling.
know it's
I,
fake. You can't trust it.
yeah,
You can't trust
you
it.
don't feel the same satisfaction, I think, because in the corporate world they're so disconnected sometimes that they don't remember people are humans. We're all human. We're all striving for
Mhm.
feelings and emotions and connection. That's what
We
we're
need
striving
it.
for every day.
That is literally our survival as human beings. We need connection and emotion.
Yeah, so I
This
think
is a
it's like
great conversation.
in
It
the
can
next
continue
5 years,
for
I
hours.
think AI is just going to be a thing of the past, and
I hope so. I really hope
that's
so.
what I strongly believe. I feel like it's just going to be a thing of the past and move on. Especially like the number of people who are interested to the number of people who are not interested is such a large margin that the group will die
Mhm.
out, and that's just how things tend to progress. It
Yeah.
dies out
Because
or
we
you
also
grow.
realize how dangerous it is. You
Yes.
know, I think that it might end up having a complete backlash, where everything comes around in circles. History always repeats itself, right? I think there will come a time where there will be a generation, because well, sorry, forgive me, but your generation, they're kind of so immersed in technology. I would not be surprised if the next two generations, like maybe your kids or maybe kids, your grandkids, will be like, I don't even want to touch technology because that is so dangerous. I fully
Yeah.
foresee that coming.
I
Yeah,
worry about it.
because
I
it's
genuinely do
dangerous.
worry. I always try to be reassuring to myself and like believe in what I do and that things will work out. But I
Mhm.
do worry like because there are people who are so, I don't want to say brain dead, but there are people who are
No, they are.
so disconnected
You can
from
say it. You can say it.
they
They're
are
brain dead. You can.
there are people who are very brain dead who are disconnected from the
Yes.
world, and they will just
Yes.
like they will see these things online and they'll just flock to it. They'll flock to it. And that's the thing I realized,
So
especially in America.
no, it's very true. I was just listening to briefly a podcast by Mel Robbins this morning, and they're talking about before you do anything, before you waste your time, listen to this. Us people, when I say us, literally watching so much TikTok, watching so much technology, what it's doing is literally changing the physical aspects of our brain.
Yes, it does.
The aspect of our brain that we use to concentrate and read a book is actually, it's a muscle. It's growing your brain. And the fact that the
Yes.
social media, it's so instant, it's taking out the work for us. And so they literally are brain dead because
Yeah.
that part of their brain has not physically grown. And when
I
I
can
see kids, my cousins' kids are on the tablet from 5 years old on the slide. That's why we're having a recession in eyesight, right?
yeah.
These kids are not going to be able to see. It's
That I
literally
agree at
happening.
because I've read similar things where it's like people I read online, like the instant gratification is actually hurting
Yes,
your brain. And I was like at
physically changing
first,
your brain. Yes.
like when I left, I think when I left Jamaica, I kind of did like a little isolation for a little, and I was off Instagram, I was off TikTok, and I felt better. Like I realized, like there was
Yes,
a snap for me. There was like
you
this
physically better.
click. There was this click
Hmm.
that wow, I'm living in the real world right now. Like
Yes.
at first, like when you live on social media, you think the next celebrity is your life, where you look at celebrities and you look at their life and you get so immersed in social media that when it's taken from you or when you stop using it, there's this like
Mhm.
click and you're like, wow, my house is a
Going for a
mess.
walk without your phone,
Wow.
using the bathroom without your
Yeah.
phone.
Like everything clicks, and it's like this weird world where you're like, wow, my house is a mess. Wow, I haven't eaten in 5 hours or the whole day because I've been sitting here. Or wow, like I'm looking at another human being's face right now and seeing all the details and
Things that we
interacting with
take for
them. Like
granted.
it's
Yes.
it's such a privilege, and we don't even realize it. And every day I pray to God. I
It's what we
always
take for granted.
yeah, I wear
Yeah.
glasses and I pray to God and I thank Him like all the time that I'm able to just see, because being able to see is so important. People don't realize that, like
It is.
seeing the beauty of the world around you is actually phenomenal when you take the time to do it. Like if you take time out of your day just to appreciate the world around you and not just scroll on your phone, like it's a huge difference. It helps you. It makes you feel better. And I try to like lately I've gotten back on social media just to like work on some social media stuff for like my own career and just like interact with people. But I know it's not a long-term thing, because when I'm actually immersed in my work and real life, I realize, wow, like this is not what I was doing before, wasn't living. And anybody who is on social media, if you give it a break, you'll realize, wow, I wasn't really living. There just needs to be a healthy balance. Like nobody's saying don't
It
use
does.
Instagram, but just like give it a break, chill, like take
Give it
2
a
days
break,
without
yeah.
it. Like
And you
you'll be
realize that
okay.
the art that you're creating, the time, the hours that you are on a shoot, and you haven't touched your phone in like 5 hours,
It's the best
you
feeling,
really,
honestly.
it's the best thing in the world, right? My
When
cyanotypes, when I take the
yeah,
hours to create them, I just like, there's a phone, or my phone will be ringing. I'm like, what is that sound? Because I'm so immersed in creating this artwork, and it's a feeling that you will never get other than just looking
yeah,
at
I
it.
love like being on set, just work with people. Like I
Yeah.
love, especially like I worked on film sets. I do it pretty often because I love working on film sets. And I've been on feature films where it's an overnight shoot, and I wasn't happy because it was overnight. I was happy because we were just it's 10, 20 people all in one building, just like talking to each other up and down
Creative
all
people.
night. Yeah, and you're not touching your phone once. You might touch every now and then just to check the time, but like it's like being in the real world is actually very fun. And even things like watching a movie, watching this, like those things, they don't those are fun too. Like it doesn't take away from the fact, hey, you don't need to be on social media, you don't need to consume this much content, but like when you take time to consume content, make it meaningful, do what you
That's
do
it.
and
Make
make
it
it
meaningful.
meaningful. Like take everything you do, it doesn't need to be meaningful, but when you're consuming content especially, that should be meaningful. Like
Yeah, you
being in
can
the real world is
target
just
your
a good
you can
feeling.
adjust your feed, your news feed, to make it things that are educational for yourself. Like you learn
Yes.
today, TikTok is a new school. Because now, like, I have learned so much from TikTok, so
And
much, right?
with TikTok,
And you just tailor
even
your feed to educational stuff and not the Kardashian crap and the latest this and the latest that. Like, no, tailor it to something that's educational, home improvement, finances, financial literacy, learning more photography. Tailor it towards that,
yeah,
but still don't get caught.
that is a goal that I try to have with social media, just to follow and keep up with things I care about. Because I don't know, like, it's funny when a lot of us don't really know what, especially when you're immersed in your craft, you don't actually know what's going on outside. Like, you don't know,
Yeah.
like, that Kim K just did this last week. You don't know which celebrity is having this breakup. You don't know about the latest iPhone sometimes because you've been living in the real world and improving your, because we all have our different
You've
lives.
been creating.
We all live our own very unique lives, and we have to cater to our lives, because if we give it all to social media, then like where are we going to end up? Nowhere. You're not going to
That's the new
progress, you're not going to
commodity
grow.
right now. Our attention
So
and our time is the hottest selling thing right now.
yeah, so you just have to take that self-control basically. But yeah, I'm
We could
open
go
to
on.
any questions that's all left. I know we've been here a while. Wow, we've had a good conversation. It's like 2 hours. It's been good.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it has been good.
I'm open to any more discussions, and yeah, if anybody else wants to say anything.
There any other questions or comments before we close off for this evening? No? All right, Karsten, it was a pleasure having you.
Yes, it
Um,
was
it
it was
was
really good.
it was good to hear you share your experiences. As Amanda mentioned, that the passion that you have photography, it
Just
it
pours out.
shows as you speak about what you do and the craft. Um,
Thank you.
looking forward to us maintaining a line of communication.
Yeah, I want to be at these meetings all the time. I'm gonna try and come as
Can
much as
you
I
actually
can.
share,
Sure, no
would you be
problem.
willing to share your contact for us so we
Yeah,
can
of
keep in touch?
course.
Yeah, just put it in the
So
chat.
this is um so if anybody would ever want to reach out to me, this is my phone number. Um this is like a phone number I have here in America. And then I think if you reach out to me on WhatsApp, it's a different number. But it's
Mhm.
I'm not sure. It might be this.
You're
Let's
sure?
see.
You're not sure? How are
I'm
you
not
not
sure.
sure
It's
what's your number?
because on WhatsApp they make you like connect. At first they like made you connect with like a phone number, and then it can just transfer over to any phone. So I think I just signed up on this phone with the old number.
Ah,
So I'm not sure, but
okay.
those are my two numbers if anybody ever wants to reach out to me, and even just like, share work, just talk. Like I try not to be like most photographers around me who are very like stuck up, and it's all, hey, like, hey man, like respect my
Mhm,
time. Like I'll give you 30 minutes of my time today. I try to just
mhm,
be with my community and learn and talk to people because I'm a human who wants to learn and talk. And I think
mhm.
most people are the same way. So
Yeah.
if anybody ever wants to reach out, that those are my numbers right there.
All right,
And
cool.
yeah,
Thank you.
Let
yes,
me
It
share
was
the link
really
to your
nice
website
talking to you
again,
tonight.
just
yes,
in case I posted it before some person joined.
yes. And
Uh,
that's my website. I try to update it as much as I can.
you're doing a better job than I am. I haven't updated mine in a while.
I just try
I'm
to do
not
it as
seeing
much
anything.
anytime work comes in, I just try and add it on there because, but also people, another fact, small little note, um, I would try to tell people, especially newer photographers, make a PDF or whenever you reach out to somebody, just like include that image because apparently something I learned from a photo agent recently was like a lot of people don't like to click on links, especially like photo editors or producers. They don't like to click on the links because they think it's gonna be like some weird spam or something because they do get these emails a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
always
Yeah.
include like a PDF or an image of your work or just like follow them on social media, but just always send like alternatives, like out to PNG of your work below, the email so they could see it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah,
That's
like in
something
your
I would
signature.
always recommend. That's something I learned, so that's what I've been doing lately.
It's a valid point because you're right. I don't even click on links that people send me on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So like Dwayne, I know you, but if you just send me a random link with no caption, I'm not clicking it. Even though I know you, I'm not clicking it. So
Yes,
Yes.
that's the appropriate reaction.
Yes. So
yeah.
get those yeah, just it's not bad to just attach PDFs and PNGs. That's what I'm recommending. But yeah, this was
Yeah.
great, and I want to be, every meeting and just be in the background, listen to other people talk, and just be a part of this community. So I'm thankful for the opportunity that I was given today by Ms. Zaka and Dwayne. Thank you for setting this up, Dwayne. Thank
Mhm.
you,
You're welcome.
Miss Amanda, for
It was really great.
all the conversation, and thank you, Mr. Bruce, especially, and thank you to everybody else who showed up. I didn't expect. I was so nervous before this whole thing. Like my heart was
Man,
just
we're
jumping.
cool peeps.
I know, I
Cool
know. I was
peeps.
just worried. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Like, what am I gonna say? But I'm human, just like everybody else, and I appreciate everybody else here just being so open and transparent and just eager to ask questions. And I'm eager to ask questions on what I just learned. So thank you again for like this great opportunity, and I hope
It's
from
a
here I can make my
Yeah,
country
man.
proud.
it's a building
Definitely.
process. The expectation is that a photographer should be the extrovert personally,
Yes.
but many of us, myself included,
Mhm.
I hate public speaking.
Can't do it.
I'm introverted, but I know that as a photographer, I need to be able to communicate with the client. So I'm constantly
Dwayne.
working on that.
Dwayne, you see how the night that we met, that I gave a speech at Edna?
Mhm.
I'm a teacher and I'm terrified of public speaking. Make it make sense. How that makes sense. I was so nervous that night to make that speech to a small room of people.
Yeah.
But,
It's
you know,
oxymoron.
we did it.
Dennis said you've done well, Karsten. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah.
Yes, he definitely
Thank
has
you
done
so
very
much,
well.
Miss Denise. I keep trying, and thank you so much.
All
Yes,
right.
I'll
Have
try
a
to
good
be at the
night.
next
I'm
one.
gonna sign off now.
Yes.
Alright.
Have a good night,
Alright.
everyone, and thank you so much for
Bye.
coming out.
You're welcome. Thank you, Karsten. Thank you
Bye.
to everyone else.
Great.
Do enjoy.
Take care of yourself.
Yes, will do. Bye.